And now, a workshop of the McAllen City Commission. All workshops are open to the public in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. These workshops allow for detailed staff presentations.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll call this meeting to order. Today's May 28th, and this is a workshop of the McAllen Board of Commissioners. We're going to begin with item number 1. Are there any questions related to today's meeting that we can address now?
No questions, Mayor Pro Tem.
None.
All right, no questions. Item number 2, streetlights.
Okay, this is a follow-up discussion on streetlights. It was requested probably a couple of meetings back, so got a quick report.
Good afternoon, City Commission. Marlene Garza with the Traffic Operations Department. As Mr. Rodriguez said, it's a follow-up on a presentation that was given back in September of this past year. So some of the slides are going to look familiar, and I'm just going to kind of add to add information and updates based on that information presented. Overview really quick on the original submittal of this project, which was to prioritize different categories within the city. One of the things that one of the items that we wanted to address was streetlights in old neighborhoods to make sure we get them up to current city codes. This is the breakdown of the estimated number of lights per district that we were thinking of submitting to AEP and Magic Valley by district. And then just an update on the workflow. What we've done so far is we've done a preliminary schematic, and I'll break that down in maybe a couple of slides on what that means. The next thing that we do after we created that preliminary schematic is we do field reconnaissance. The original design preliminary schematic was done all off of Google Earth, and so there's a lot of holes that were missing. The city of McAllen is pretty big, so Google Earth was a way to kind of save time and money from having to go out there and check all the streetlights that we have in the city. So the field reconnaissance is where we went and we double-checked that Google Earth design, and just to make sure that we're matching existing street lighting features. For example, if we have a neighborhood that all they have are the aluminum lantern post, and then we go in there and we put in, let's say, an overhead LED light. We have had requests in the past where, you know, it's a nuisance. It looks like a sore thumb sticking out in a nice neighborhood. Also, too, with concrete poles. If the subdivision has concrete poles, we don't want to go in there and place an overhead. If that's absolutely necessary, we'll go in there and we'll do that, but we're trying to make sure during the field reconnaissance that we're matching the existing features of the neighborhood so that it's not too big of an impact to the neighborhood, and it provides lighting as is the goal. The next is we do the field reconnaissance and finalize all the preliminary design so that we can submit to AEP. Once AEP receives that preliminary schematic, they go in there and make sure that there's the power source is there. For example, that the transformer can handle that additional capacity. Let's say we add 5 lights, but the transformer can't handle that additional capacity, then they would let us know at that time. In addition to these street lights, we're having so many poles, and another transformer is going to need to be added, things like that. So that was something that is done with AEP. I'll also provide a breakdown in the next slide as far as where we're at with those submittals. Then the final plan development, which is we pay AEP and they do the work. We have some areas taken care of, but not all areas taken care of. So status to date, these are the breakdowns per district and the number of lights that are going to be requested. For District 1, that is a compilation of AEP and Magic Valley, so we submitted the original request all to AEP. Then AEP turns around and says, you know, 80% of these lights are ours, the rest are Magic Valley. So then we take those designs and submit over to Magic Valley, and Magic Valley has been able to already start submitting to us requests saying this area is going to cost $5,000, $10,000. Then we're starting to generate check requests based on that. For District 2 and District 3, we submitted them this past month. But one of the things that we also did is we had a meeting with AEP to follow up on the original submittal that we did with District 1, and we said, what is taking so long? How can we help? Moving forward, we're going to be submitting District 2, District 3, District 5, and District 6, which are larger districts. What can we do moving forward? So they said that the original submittal that we made is a significant number of lights for what they can handle. They have about 2 or 3 designers that work with City of McAllen in addition to other cities, and their priority is the daily work coming in from other cities, commercial developments, new subdivisions, and they have to split their time between those daily tasks and this new project. So they said one thing you can do to begin with is submit to us the request in small chunks that we can digest. For example, don't submit to us 62 lights, submit to us an email with the request for 10 to 20 lights per request so that we can go in there and be able to break it down for our staff, because we have a limited number of staff that can work on this project. And so for District 2 and District 3, we've been sitting down breaking these requests to smaller portions in order to be able to submit them so that they can be able to take that information and start working with it. We have not submitted Districts 5 and District 6. These are our larger districts. As we're trying to finalize the preliminary design, we're also breaking it down into the more digestible chunks that AEP and Magic Valley are requesting. So we're working on that.
But when you say larger districts, you mean by what? Like territorial?
No, what I mean by
or
larger,
more lights
more street
are
lights
needs- I
per
mean-
district, yes.
Okay.
So not necessarily area, we're
Yeah,
not
no,
talking
I
area.
just noticed that District 5 and District 6 were left to because the more need, they were left to the end. I thought it should be a little bit more into the beginning, because we are the ones with more needs as far as lights. We are the ones that need the most lights than any other
I
district.
think what we were trying to do is get the low-hanging fruit. We thought the 80 would get done quickly, but 80 is too big of a number still for them. And then in hindsight, knowing that now, we could have probably broken it up into smaller packets, but the goal, we thought 80 was gonna be easy for them to knock out. We didn't realize there was gonna be this much of a delay between submitting 80 and then it getting into construction for them.
Yeah, let me ask,
The 80 or 92, which one's, what number are you on?
Well, I'm just using that number, but
Oh.
that's 92 is the exact.
okay, let me just try to clarify in my mind. When you say submitted, these are additional poles with lights that you have deemed necessary to lighten the area, or existing lights?
Not existing.
These are not existing lights?
Additional.
Okay, additional. Okay. Okay.
The,
I experienced, hold on for a second. I experienced just 2 weeks ago a light in front of my house, okay, that was off for around like 6 months. And they put a white bulb in the existing pole, and it illuminated, instead of 6 homes, 3 and 3, it illuminated even further, at least 4 and 4, maybe even, 5 and 5. That much more lighting is now the difference between what was there, the yellow light that was there before, when it went off, and now this. Are we looking at that and seeing possibly that we're trying to add some lights that possibly were yellow lights and can be put to a much brighter light?
So all new street lights, back when Yvette was here, I think she discussed with AEP, any new streetlight from a certain point on, when it was a new installation, it was going to be LED, which is the white light.
Okay, a new installation.
New
But This was
installation.
not a new installation.
that
This
But-
is a 50-year subdivision.
Yes, in addition to upgrades requested by, or when the light goes out completely, they replace it with an
So they
LED
can
bulb.
replace that with the same pole, with the same, they can replace it with that type of a light.
If it's, yes, if it's overhead, yes, on
Okay,
a wood pole.
because, okay, and them replacing it, what is the cost to us, city, for them to replace it?
Depending on the request, I want to say for AEP is around $200 to $300, sometimes less.
So when a bulb, breaks or whatever, not performing, and they come and replace it, do they charge us?
No, because that's part of maintenance. So if
Okay.
it goes out on its own, it's maintenance, but if it's request through a new upgrade and we want to replace the bulb, but it works, then it's the 200
Okay,
or 300.
okay. Because, okay, we're asking to add more lights, and possibly we need to add more lights in certain, but,
So just to talk about this, so the money that we set aside was that we had done a survey saying we had, and Marlene can correct me, 300-foot spacing. And there was areas that didn't meet that spacing throughout the city, and we were asked, go and fill those gaps out. And so that's why certain districts have a lot. The newer districts seem to be more to the standard, and more established neighborhoods need those 250 lights to meet the gaps in between. And that was the goal of the money.
yeah, you're just Googling, in other words, you're Googling it and you're looking at spaces, and you're saying, it doesn't meet the 300 or the 250 or whatever, and you're saying you need to do it. I'm just looking at, because I saw that, and I saw a huge difference in the lighting of a regular street, a street that been in a neighborhood of 50 years, okay? So if, especially in District 5 and 6, I think right in the middle, 4, 5, and 6, are they just a bunch of yellow lights still there? And could we put white lights there, and could it meet the needs?
That's a very good point that we can definitely talk to AEP
And maybe
about.
what you can do in a sample, this is a, 1 block, 2 block type scenario, and you got 15 lights there, whatever. Change them all to white and see how the neighborhood looks, and see if you have them in something that you were gonna change or add, okay? And maybe it fits the need. I mean, I at least one trial, okay? One trial and look at it, walk it instead of Google it, that's why. And see it. I think there might be something there. And then the other thing before I leave, this discussion on my part, is if all of those yellow lights on 10th Street, if in 23rd and whatever, the big thoroughfares, if you put them all white, you might see a much better difference, because I'm seeing darkness in a lot of thoroughfares. And you might, those yellow, I'm just telling you, that white light, LED, whatever you want to call it, it just illuminates so much better
That
than
could be
the
the,
ugly yellow lights.
Could be an extension or maybe phase 2 of this program that, we're looking to add poles, right? But we also need to be looking at poles that have lights that are weak or yellow or not as bright, right? And so that's going to be an ongoing
Well, but
program here at the city, I think, until we get every pole that has new lights, right, or LED lights.
Yeah, and I'll say this, the foot spread for an LED light, with the spread of light that it's supposed to emit, should be the same as an HPS light or a mercury vapor light. However, that cleaner white light does give a perception It's more of a perception than an actual, if you go with the monitor, it should give you the.
I'm just telling you,
0.1
walk
foot
it,
candle or
walk it,
whatever.
I walk it.
But
It's my house.
it does give you that perception. I just wanted to put it out there that,
Okay,
that white light
I would.
gives that visual look.
Yeah.
Do we save energy with LED lights?
There
We
is,
pay a flat fee.
on the rate savings right now, no, until they come up with a new rate structure. It still falls under the same rate structure as, high-pressure sodium.
But we pay a flat fee per pole, right? So it doesn't matter how much energy it uses?
Pretty much.
No, but they have that calculated pretty much, they've run like what it costs to run a light.
That's what I mean, but we don't get the benefit of any savings, energy
Not
savings.
right now, until they establish a rate for LEDs. They're working on that. We've spoken with Lee Jones before. They just haven't established a rate for LEDs yet. So they use. the
But right
old
now, it's a
rate.
flat rate per
Yes.
pole.
Yes, sir.
A calculated flat rate to ensure they cover their costs, but
That's
should there
correct.
be savings, we don't get that benefit.
We don't get it right now.
Which I think it stemmed a lot of this conversation years back because we actually started the discussion with the amount of lights that were out and we're paying a flat amount. So we got a tremendous amount repaired, right? I remember we went through that and then we started talking about the coverage within the city. When was District 1 submitted?
yeah, these are wrong. These districts, these are the old,
The old maps?
these are
Here's
the
the old
old
line.
But they still cover the whole city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
because they have District 1 above 107, and it's District 2 now.
I
Yeah.
It
believe.
doesn't matter, you're
yeah.
right, but the maps are even wrong.
Yeah, so the maps that are in this presentation were the original, so to speak, like the original map we used to kind of get an idea of how many lights we were going to need for district. When the redistricting happened, which was before we submitted about a year ago, the District 1, we used the current map. So these numbers are based on the current district limits
The
for,
map that you
or
showed.
the map with the new
There's a
district.
difference.
The map that you showed here, it says District
number.
1,
Yes,
says 107, going all the way to Monte Cristo, and 107 to Monte Cristo is District 2 now.
You're saying that's an old map, but
that's
those
an old
numbers
map
are correct up
that we used to, when we first presented the project, we used those maps to present them to you, but we didn't use that map for the original submittal.
You're
So
correct,
you'll
Commissioner.
see the, yes, you,
Basically,
Yeah,
yes,
District 1 needs
you're
less
correct,
lights.
yes. This
Breakdown
District
point.
1 was submitted
It doesn't matter, it
correctly.
doesn't matter as long as they're the house, but I'm just saying,
We'll skip District
these
1.
maps are wrong.
They're old maps.
They're all maps.
They're old
Mucha,
maps.
let's go to the-
Yeah.
But when was District 1 submitted?
A year ago, I looked at the letter and it was April
what was the
2023,
current
and we're
status?
about 10% into design.
Nine lights out of the
Uh,
92?
Yes.
So if you had broken it up, let's say there's 100 lights. If you had broken up into 5 requests for 20 lights each, somehow they would have gotten that done faster?
I can't speak for AEP, but the meeting that we had, they mentioned that if we were to break them down, that could make it easier for them. It didn't necessarily mean that they would get them done quicker, but that's what they mentioned. So I'll go into the next slide just so you can kind of get an idea of what we are up against. So the right, or your left, the image for with the aerial is the design that the city of McAllen submitted, which was the preliminary design. On the other side is the AEP design. This is where they're making sure that they check the power source, they check the availability, number of poles, any additional poles. Some of the things that they mentioned to us that they ran into is sometimes they don't have enough power. Sometimes the structures that are there, they might need to add to structures that are needed. In addition, as they're measuring and staking out these areas, if a resident sees them measuring, they'll go up to them and say, sir, by the way, what are you doing? And they'll say, we're working on a project for the city of McAllen to add additional lighting to the subdivision. And sometimes they will get comments like, but I didn't ask for additional lighting within my subdivision, and so AEP will have to stop all work and they'll have to call us and say, hey, by the way, this area that you submitted, we'll have to move on to the next one because we got a request from one of the residents that's saying that they would not like additional lighting. So these are the kinds of things that they are running into. We're working with them and say, whenever you get a problem like this, have them call us directly and we can work something out to whether we, talk to the HOA or try to get some feedback from, our city engineer or try to figure out some kind of solution. Another item that they are also running into is where they're, like let's say they need to construct a new transformer. Sometimes the closest transformer is inside private property, so they're trying to get access to that transformer, and the resident within that lot might say, I don't want you to access my property, because I don't want to have anyone digging through my property so that you can get, your power source for your additional lights. That's another item that they mentioned that they're running into. Of course, they're going on and moving on to the next ones that they can get done, but we are trying to work with them to try to.
So you are, right now, they are performing.
They are.
They're performing this, what we're talking about here.
Yes.
We're
At a very slow pace, but they are.
You said transformers in private property.
There's some in private
Okay,
property.
because they're supposed to be an easement, utility easement for, exactly for that, for
A lot of people
access to all
enclose
those kind of
them.
things.
They're inside, like on the easement, but enclosed in their back fence.
Yeah,
A lot of the older subdivisions, they have them on the back of the lots.
yeah.
And so people have them stuck on the back of
But still, it still is part of the easement of the
Oh, yeah.
access?
the.
Yes.
They
So,
have access.
I will
by
give you
law.
an example. of Bicentennial between Auburn and Frontera, there's a limited amount of lighting in that area. One of the reasons is because there's not a lot of space between the back of the curb and that wall. We went in there and we talked to AP. We said, we really need lighting. There's been 2 car accidents. We think lighting will help, improve the area. When they went in there and they said, we can give you the design, we can do the work, but we need to access a transformer that's within private property. There's a renter that is leasing that home, and so we had to send a right of entry letter. We coordinated with legal, sent a right of entry letter and certified mail. By the time we got a hold of the actual property owner, it was like 2 or 3 weeks later. We were able to get access. They're able to schedule that work. Then from there, they're able to continue staking the poles out there. We've already paid AEP, but the work hasn't gotten completed yet, and so all that takes a little bit of time.
Well, that's a standard procedure.
Yes,
And
and I understand.
that happens in new property and old property, whatever. To get right of ways and easements and everything else, it takes time. It's a process. Yes, that will happen. And then other times it's just nice and smooth. But because of one, you can have a delay. I hate to say that, but that is just development. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on the
I have another
preliminary and
question.
final
You also
design?
mentioned that some
Yes.
people said, like, what are you guys doing over here? We don't ask for any lights. I mean, isn't public
I missed the question.
streets, I mean, even with an HOA, it's public and it has,
Yeah, benefits greater
Yes.
than that one house.
Not all subdivisions have HOAs.
No, they don't.
Not
they don't.
not
You
all.
either had HOAs or
And so
neighborhood
it's-
associations or nothing.
Or nothing.
Yeah, so it's really difficult sometimes when there's some people advocating for street lighting and then there's some people that are against the lighting itself because it's going to be in front of their property or they're going to have to go in through their property to access, whatever power source. And so that's where some of the hurdles are in when we go in there and try to request new lighting.
Let me ask you this, okay? These numbers are, like you said, because of the spacing, right? Because of what it is, but we really don't know if this study does not really tell you that there is a need for lighting at that point or in that specific light pole. In other words, if you see it at night, does it need lighting or does it not need lighting? Or you're just doing it because it's 250 feet away?
Yeah,
And you
actually,
need that.
that's what we're
That's
doing, Tony,
exactly.
because that's what the light
you know, the illumination can only take care of certain area. So we're making the decision that there is lacking, you know, of light. Now, if you go in front of my house, and I'm just using it as an example, and I don't want a light, then we'd rather back off and not do it because it's right in front of somebody's house and they're saying, I don't want it, or I don't need it, or both. So we go on to the next one. But yeah, I mean, we're using dimensions to make this determination.
That's the only way to do it. Other than that, you're driving every street, you're gonna leave
Well, what's
somebody
wrong with
out.
driving every street?
But you're gonna leave somebody out, number one, and you can't
Oh, I'm
manage driving every street.
I'm walk the walk and talk the talk guy. I mean, honestly, something works, you see it, hey, there's
Now,
enough
they are
lighting in
doing
this
that.
building.
I heard you say that earlier. We originally used Google to help us make some quick determinations. But before we make a decision on an install, they're going out there to check.
Well, that's what I'm asking, and I'm not saying, I'm not getting a yes from that.
Yes,
Okay.
we do that.
Okay.
We absolutely do that.
Okay, that's what I'd just like for y'all to do, exactly, that. Okay, good, you're doing it. I'm just saying, if because something looks that way and it doesn't measure right, but again, I'm gonna just tell you that those older lights, okay, give out so much light, and the newer lights give so much more,
We agree.
and that might be enough.
So our position is if you have one property owner that opposes having an install, but the other 6 or 8 neighbors really
No,
don't.
Not necessarily.
You know, we use a little bit of judgment. I mean, if there's 1 versus 6, we're probably gonna install the light. But a lot of times, you're gonna get into a subdivision where people don't want lights. They call it light pollution. Okay, they do not want more lights in their subdivision, and so that's a fact of life. There are some cities in Texas that have restrictions about too much lights. I mean, if we would try to impose our 250 or 300 feet per pole, they throw us out of the building in, say, Dripping Springs.
Yeah.
Or
You're right.
places like that. So we've got to use a little bit of judgment, but if we get pushback from a subdivision,
Yeah.
we're going to go to the next one.
Okay.
Yes,
Just
Now,
because we're trying
I'll
to.
tell you what happens with Marlene is, they'll tell them that they don't want it there, so they try to move it, but once you move it, you gotta start the redesign.
Right.
And so that's why AP moves on, like Roy's saying, they move on and the construction crew moves on because they're gonna send that back to engineering and it's gotta get redesigned again if you move over a lot or vice versa.
Yeah, but you gotta check who's saying that they don't want it in front, because that happened over here in District 4, and the person that didn't want the light there was a crack house. They didn't want a light.
I tell you. Yeah, of course.
You gotta be checking who it is.
They're like the,
you're correct. I mean, hey, if the neighborhood looks fine and everything's great, no need to mess with it. But where there's a need, and there are needs in the city because, you know, people have brought it to our attention. And again, I go back, the thoroughfares that need lighting, it needs lighting. It would be not better if there'd be more lighting in some of those larger thoroughfares, you know, so, anyway, that's what
The next couple of slides are just, as Mr. Tony Aguirre mentioned, just old lights, and those are based on the original submittal. They are not what we are currently submitting by district. We're using the new maps for the submittals. But the old maps kind of give you an idea of the breakdown on where we got the numbers and the figures for every area within McAllen. And I'll take any questions because the rest of the slides are just maps.
Just based on the current status and the pending items, what would you say the full timetable would be to have this project behind us?
After meeting with AEP and seeing the kind of efforts that they're making and knowing that they're prioritizing the commercial and residential, all the new construction, and putting this not in the back burner, but trying to get done as much as they can, I mean, it'll take a couple of years. So I believe when we first presented it, we had a plan of getting it done within 6 years. Based on the meeting we had with AEP, I would say we'll probably be at twice that timeline maybe 12 years, at the rate that they are going. Just to, reiterate, we submitted District 1 with 92 lights, or average 92 lights, and a year later, they're at 10% complete. And that's taking into account some of the storms we've had, some of the material delays that they have. I'm not really sure how much turnover they have as well, but, all those obstacles or items that we don't see behind the scenes, we're trying to still keep submitting, and we will continue submitting all our information, but there's no telling on when we will receive feedback for that, all that work that's being done.
Well, Roy, I think you need to get involved and find out really from the masters. And it is, a lot of that area is not AEP, it's Magic Valley.
Well, District 1 has the largest percentage of Magic Valley.
Yes.
The rest of the districts are
No, without a doubt, I'm just saying.
predominantly AEP.
AEP, yeah.
Yes.
So ideally, like, take this map for District 1, that big chunk where it says 45 up top. If you were to, is that what you submit to AP for that block, or that designated section, you would submit 45?
With the new submittals,
For-
yes,
For them to, but this is based on.
or maybe
the-
in 2,
The spacing alone.
correct.
And then they,
The-
when do we go out and assess maybe which ones are most viable, right? Because out of that 45, likely 30 actually need to get done, right?
Correct.
So when does that, I think, blend work? AP figures that out, or, Roy stated
No,
that you
we
guys go
figure
out?
that out already. So when we submit to AEP, that's our final design. This is our final request. AEP will not add any more lights than we are requesting. They'll add poles to be able to provide the lighting that we're requesting, but they usually will not add any more lighting. We will be the ones
Okay.
dictating that.
So for District 2, you submitted 62 here just this early this month, right? Mm-hmm. Based on the spacing, how many lights actually were on the map?
The 62.
That's what I mean. So this 62 is just based on spacing. It's not,
No, they already did the reconnaissance, they already went out there and confirmed this number, here's our number, after walking, as Tony says, the area.
so the Google
That's the
map
plan.
generated 62 and then
May have, I don't know.
No,
Or-
90, or let me see.
that's the difference I was getting at. So we do,
So the Google Earth map for District 2 generated 141.
that's right.
Then
And so
the
you guys
final
got it down to 62.
Right.
That makes sense based on what you saw, the neighborhoods. Okay, see that, so
Makes a lot more sense.
that's what I think I needed some clarification on, and I think is good for anyone
Okay.
that's watching, is that these are numbers based on actual inspected need.
Correct.
right? Down from the metrics, which really show you on spacing how many could possibly have gone in.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Well,
Okay, we're
we went down by like 5.
Yeah.
Okay, next item, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for that
Appreciate
presentation.
it, guys.
Next item is item number 3, Section 108, Loan Guarantee Program.
You need help? Are you uploading? Oh, there you go. Okay.
Section 108.
Is it this one?
No. Section 108.
Where did you say that? Okay.
Let's do third first. We're dead one. No, tell him to come back.
It's not this one.
Yeah, that's that one, but it's that one's a PDF form. I think Julia had one that she closed by accident. It's PDF.
I understand. Which, does it look in
It'll be thoroughfare.
thoroughfare?
I don't know where he put it. He said he put it in, but I don't know what he put it under.
This was it? No.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, that's it. So we're back to that one?
So he's looking for one that is thoroughfare.
That was the one that wasn't.
They switched.
Where'd you put the?
It's right there. Yeah. Go here. Go to thoroughfare. Okay, now move that.
I guess I'll start out
It's good enough.
Yeah, let's just go through it this way.
You got the thing.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, good afternoon. There was a couple of meetings back that the commission asked for a workshop item on the thoroughfare plan for the city, dealing primarily the area between Nolana up to Highway 107. So we put together a brief slide presentation regarding the thoroughfare plan. As you know, we adopted Envision McAllen 2040 last year, and within that plan, there's components that deal with various aspects of the community. One of them being addresses transportation needs for the city as the city continues to grow, what those needs would be for the different roadways. Also includes a thoroughfare plan, which breaks it down even more, talks about different road classifications. So you find that within the plan. And a comprehensive plan of this type, it's a long-term plan. It'll take 20, 25 years before some of these things you begin to see the results of that. So it is looking into the future and what the city needs could be in that time frame. It also addresses the need for connectivity to reduce congestion in various parts of the city. It classifies roadways and calls for dedication requirements. When a new development is occurring, a new subdivision is proposed to come through the process, we will use the comprehensive plan, the thoroughfare plan, to make sure that if that property is abutting to one of those roadways that's in the thoroughfare plan, that the proper dedication and requirements be applied to that subdivision plan. So that is part of the staff review. That does go back to the engineer and developers on the first review so that they're aware of it. Oftentimes, we have a project meeting with the developers before they acquire a property or they're looking at the needs for a property. And we do highlight those areas that could be impacted by a roadway that is designated in the thoroughfare plan. So it is used on a daily basis. And of course, there is discussion always for an east-west connectivity, for future growth and development of the city. That's an area that's oftentimes a concern for moving traffic. Within the street designation, it does bring down the different roadways. You have your local streets, your residential streets, those that have a specific right-of-way. It gets into a major and minor collectors. Those tend to be an 80 to 100-foot right-of-ways. Your high-speed principal minor arterials, those can be from 80 up to 150-foot right-of-way, depending on the classification, high-speed roadways and so on. You also have the classification for expressways, and that calls for 350-foot right-of-way. Now, the thoroughfare plan itself doesn't show all the roadways. It doesn't show quarter-mile collectors. It doesn't show all the half-mile collectors. If they were to be shown on the thoroughfare plan, it would be so convoluted with so much information that to try to figure out what exactly is what would be difficult. But the thoroughfare plan does call out for quarter-mile street locations as well as half-mile street locations. Quarter-mile locations are important in that they help circulate traffic and move away all from everybody emptying out into a major roadway. It does bring it to collector roadways, which then takes it into a higher roadway designation. There could be streetlights and so on that would be provided there. So it does provide a need to provide circulation within the developments and onto the larger roadways itself. The next slide brings up some of the roadways between Nolana and 107, and Eduardo will be able to address that.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I put two slides together. One, some of the discussion or the reason we were requested to bring this is discussion on east-west corridors, and I wanted kind of the last slide Luis showed was a very zoomed out map of our thoroughfare plan. And so what I did here is bring a thoroughfare plan that shows Nolana Avenue on the bottom of your page and SH 107 on the top of your page. And you can see the east-west corridors. The right-of-way designation is in your bottom legend. So your bottom classification that we have on our thoroughfare map has an 80-footer right-of-way all the way to 150-footer right-of-way. 150-footer right-of-way would be like Ware Road. That's the type of road you would be trying to build there. On the next slide, what we did, or what I had staff put together, is just what it would cost to build those sections out based on what's incomplete and needs to be completed on those east-west corridors. And these are very rough estimates, just using it's more of an estimate. We haven't done any design or any schematic to that yet, but these are rough costs. If you look at Nolana, we think a total cost to go to 85 6-foot lane with left turn lane medians would be about $10 million, and that's from Ware Road to 23rd. We have, and what we show on the right-hand column there is the escrows we've taken in for that area, and it's $93,000, and so you see that there's a variance there. And
From Ware Road
this is
to where?
from Ware to 23rd?
To 23rd.
To 23rd. And so we bring this just as informational for you to see what the needs are based on the thoroughfare plan, what the cost for construction is, what we've taken in for escrows, and
From Ware Road to 23rd Street on Nolana, right?
yes, sir.
You're saying to widen it further
Yes, sir.
than what it is today?
That's projected to be 6-lane road, widened up. Similar to what we have between 23rd and 2nd Street, we have a 6-lane facility, trying to take that in that section.
Well, there's a lot of, from 29th all the way to Ware Road, there's a lot of open space.
There's right-of-way, most of the right-of-way is established in that section.
Already established,
It's
yeah.
mainly construction.
Right.
We do have, one of the things I did forget to put is, some of these roads, if you look at this, it's got in parentheses FHWA text dot funding. So some of them have projected funding. That project, we do have on the MPO. Other ones that we would like to seek funding to try to offset some of those costs would be like Freddie Gonzalez, Sprague on the bottom of your page. Those are potential corridors that you could seek MPO funding, and that's, before EDC reduction, it's an 80-20 match on those dollars.
Right.
But we open it up for any questions. Yes, ma'am.
So like Luis mentioned, the quarter and half mile collectors are not specified on the actual map itself as a color. However, they are in the ordinance. So when we're working with property owners, sometimes those quarter and half mile collectors, we can work with them on the alignment to slightly shift it so that we can work
Correct.
better with their developments.
Yeah.
So that's what staff does, and that's what those development meetings that they have with them are. And of course, all of this is to try to preserve as much right of way with as little cost to the citizens as possible.
Yeah, the other major one, the east-west, is on Trenton, right after Ware Road. Yeah, right after Ware Road. It is being expanded, which is the 5-mile line, okay, Trenton. It is being expanded all the way to La Homa Road. It's a huge expansion there. And I know that it's a text dot, and I know that Sharyland Water Supply is having to move their utilities and everything, but from that point all the way to, I guess, Sherry Road, if we would fast track that, that would be very good for east-west movement. Because right now, like, mile 3, Buddy Owens, mile 3, goes all the way to further than Conway, going even further west.
So
And that is used a lot for east-west.
that project has kicked off. It's under the utility relocation right now. TxDOT's doing utility relocation
On Trenton?
on Trenton.
Yeah.
Or they call it 676 right
Yeah,
now.
something like that, yeah. So when do you think that 2
The-
years from now type
The
scenario?
total construction, I would venture to guess, is about 24 months, but
24 months.
we can get back to you on that.
And that will get all the way, then that will become a major thoroughfare, such as Mile 3.
The pre-construction meeting for that is in June. We'll be attending, and we'll get the date for you on that.
And you could easily get to North 10th Street, you could easily get to 10th Street from there, all the way from La Homa, and go down there, so people can come into McAllen and shop, eat, dance, and go back home.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that project is a combination of MPO, the county, and the city. We've already
Yeah.
begun funding for 600.
So if we can just imagine what Mile 3 it looks like today, that could be Mile 5.
Right.
And Business 83, and so you've got those ways to get in and out of your city.
So I was the one that actually requested this, right? And so if I go from the bottom of the page north to make it easier for everybody, I'm trying to keep in line with the principle of a mile and half-mile collectors, understanding the quarter-mile collectors are not going to go all the way through east and west, but they're going to feed into the north and south arterial streets, right? So Nolana accomplishes that, save and except that it doesn't go past Wood Taylor, and of course that has to do with Palmhurst and the city of Mission. Buddy Owens almost accomplished that, but we never, back in our city's history, never completed Violet to go all the way through, mostly because those neighborhoods between, 10th Street and 23rd Street were already built. So I feel that, we obviously lost an opportunity there to build on that mile collector, which would have been 3-mile line, right? And then I think Dove kind of does a good job as well, especially since it ties into Interstate 69C. And of course, it dead ends, at least right now, at Taylor, just south of the Sherry Junior High School. Lark, also we missed an opportunity there decades ago to connect 23rd all the way to 10th Street, also because pre-1985, all those neighborhoods were there. But as we go further north, this is where it gets a little bit more complex. We try to make a half-a-mile collector on Thunderbird, but it kind of goes through a whole bunch of neighborhoods. And the right-of-way there is pretty wide, especially if it's between Ware Road and I guess the Irrigation District 3, I think. No, not 3, 2. I'm sorry, United. The United Irrigation District, and it kind of just curls around and essentially Thunderbird, right? And so I don't know, like, if that's one good example of what's the point of having a half-a-mile collector when it's just really servicing, you know, like 29th and Taylor. I don't think we ever have any intention to continue east, because as Commissioner Aguirre already alluded to, Trenton's going to pick that up. It gets more kind of a little squirrely, because now you have this gap between what Friday would be 6.5 mile line and Auburn, which is 5 mile line. You have nothing going through. And I see that Hobbs, at least schematically, looks like a straight line, but it really isn't a straight line. I really think that maybe, again, decades ago, we lost an opportunity to have that go through. But I saw a more zoomed in area of 23rd, Freddie, and the proposed Hobbs. And I really think that is a poor alignment, because you have too many dog legs and lefts and right turns where they, trunk into 23rd. I wish there was some sort of solution for that. But again, Hobbs doesn't really go anywhere either, because it starts at McCall, and essentially, at least if you kind of go through the dog legs left and right, even though it's not depicted on this schematic, it only gets you to 23rd. And so for me, for certain, I'm not talking about the quarter miles, but the half a mile and the full mile, they have to go through. And if we keep going further north, I believe Freddie kind of accomplishes that, but then we lose another opportunity at 6.5. I'm sorry, I already mentioned it's really 6 mile line, which is Freddie. But 6.5 mile line, at this point, it goes nowhere other than that segment off Taylor Road.
29th Street.
And 29th Street, right. And then Sprague, it looks like it's going to get that done, because Sprague goes all the way to downtown Edinburgh, and obviously it matches up to 107, further down the line, and of course you get to 107. But it's this, it gets very complex here between Auburn, heading north, and then south of Sprague, that's really probably our densest residential part of the city.
It's just going to, that is our growth, which is very important, which you're bringing it up, because that's our big growth. But it's probably going to have to tie into the east-west corridor of streets. Will probably have to tie to a large 23rd Street,
Right.
a large, possibly, because we're working on Benson and we're working on Taylor also, on widening those. So they're going to have to get to that and then come to the 5 mile line and then get to North McAllen that way. Because you're just not going to be able to get through. I mean, some you will, up to as much as you can, but if it's not going to work, there's no need to try to acquire those easements first. You got to acquire the ones that will make sense.
I'll tell you, some of the challenges, and I think, Luis or planning can chime in as well, but we have the irrigation canals that are
Yes,
running
that's
north
the
and
other-
south.
Those are the other challenges.
And so for the major streets, it's a lot easier. We're the ones that handle that development, and we're the ones punching Olana, Dove, Trenton. The city's pushing that. In these others, it's development, and so a lot of times that man-made feature creates an obstacle for us to get those roads punched through. And then so when developers are looking at that, they present that challenge to us, and if we don't have it's costing about 1.2 million maybe to siphon that or bring it down a grade.
Yep.
Then there's the why are we going to do that now? And so that's a challenge, and that seems to have been a challenge in that area with some of those man-made features that we have.
Yeah, I think another issue we run across is McAllen happens to have like different legal descriptions that were laid in. You have Hidalgo Canal, John H. Sherry, La Lomita, but then you got C.E. Hammonds. And those parcels all don't line up very easy.
Right.
So it creates an issue for us. As we've gone northward, we've also had subdivisions that were done by the county So as we've annexed those areas into the city, sometimes we're dealing with developments that have happened when no provision for a roadway was done. So those are things that the city looks at and modifies it as we go, because we have to deal with what reality is. But we do try to protect the road right-of-ways as much as we can, and there's always going to be some exceptions based on specific conditions that exist.
You know, one good example that I saw as being a good investment was the Dove Avenue extension, crossing Benson, or crossing over to Benson, jumping over the main, well, I call them the twin canals, right? They're not inexpensive, they can be costly. But, you know, the way I see these man-made canals is, if you're all familiar with I-35, you understand that there's like $100 billion or $10 billion project to put I-35 below ground. It's also to reunite communities, you know, especially East Austin with downtown Austin. And to me, even though these canals obviously existed way before McAllen even was north in Atlanta, I believe if we're going to continue to have strategic growth in our community, we're going to have to be able to look at these and invest it in our community. Because in my district, sometimes I forget that there's a whole bunch of people out there in Cherry Lane ISD. And a lot of it has to do, at least psychologically, that there is a man-made barrier, and that's, you know, the twin canals. And I really like to think that, you know, as we continue forward, you know, Thunderbird is another one where I know for a fact that it doesn't jump the canal, but it's worth looking at down the road. Case in point is right there where the two Cherryland, the elementary and the Cherryland junior highs are at. You just opened up 4 new subdivisions even before we've even finished up. But in anticipation, knowing that it was going to come in, they were already being built. And I suspect that that's what's the trend we're going to see as we move north and northwest, you know, that we start looking, even though Thunderbird doesn't go all the way through, but it's worth looking at to, hey, jumping that canal and connecting and binding some of these neighborhoods together.
It will develop. If we do that, all of that will develop.
Right. Same thing with Freddie. I mean, that's still kind of far north, but, you know, certainly within the 10 years, there's a 200-unit apartment development on 6 Mile Line. They knew it's going to come. It's just a matter of, you know, of it jumping it. And yes, it's going to create more traffic. But, you know, part of our prosperity in our city has always been the ability to move people around. You know, mobility is prosperity. And the more that we invest in mobility, especially in our streets and our alignments, thoroughfare plan, I think we provide a better community and service to our citizens. That's all I have.
Good point. Anything else on this item?
We'll bring the other item back.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll adjourn this workshop. See you in a bit.
Perla? No? Okay.
Well, that makes it easy. That makes it easy.
This concludes the workshop of the McAllen City Commission. Workshops are held every second and fourth Monday of the month, convening at 4 p.m. at the McAllen City Commission Chamber on the 3rd floor at McAllen City Hall.